So for now, we will proceed to the next part of our program, a panel session titled Promoting an Inclusive, Innovative, Healthy, and Sustainable Financial Sector. This panel session is organized by the PES as part of its celebration of the Economic and Financial Literacy Week 2023. To formally begin the session, I now give the floor to the moderator, lead economist of the Bank of the Philippine Islands, and the former president and current trustee of the PES, Mr. Emilio Jun Neri. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much, JC. So our session is supposed to be for 40 minutes, given the time that we are left for today's conference. Again, let me just remind everyone in the room, if you are a PS member, you are mandated by law under the Economic and Financial Literacy Act to coordinate with the NEDA in leading and encouraging the participation of the private sector and civil society during the Economic and Financial Literacy Week, which is the second week of November, which is now. So you have to know what an OTP is, right? You know what a one-time password is? You're not supposed to share it. If any of you share it, that means you will be removed from the Economic Society. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I would rather hold this session more as a Q&A for our panelists than me introducing the essence of this session. So I'd like to call on the panelists right now. Of course, Monetary Board member Bruce Tolentino, who we are very fortunate to have with us this afternoon. We also have brother Clifford Sorita from the Ministry of Cooperatives and Social Enterprise. No? I am unsure if our resource person from the DBM is around. Is Yusek? Okay, so let's. I'll start off with a very quick introduction of our two resource persons. Yeah, Dr. Basilio, is Dr. Basilio around? Okay, all right. Sige. I'll first introduce Dr. Bruce very quickly. After taking his PhD in the University of Hawaii East-West Center, he was Executive Director of the Agriculture Credit Policy Council, or ACPC, no? And then he was an Assistant Secretary of the Department of Agriculture under Cory Aquino. After that, he has done a lot of consulting for the World Bank and many other multilateral agencies. But just before becoming Monetary Board member, he was Deputy Director and Director General Secretary to the Board of Trustees in the IRI, in the International Rice Research Institute in Los Baños, and was also Chief Economist and Director for Economic Reform and Development Programs for the Asia Foundation. Our other resource speaker is, as mentioned, Brother Clifford Sorita. He's Chief Strategy Officer of Radio Veritas 846, a columnist of the People's Journal and professor at the Pamantasan and Lungsod ng Manila Business School. He is, as we know, the resource person for cooperatives in this afternoon's session. And of course, finally, we will have later on our resource speaker from the Philippine government representing the SEC, the Insurance Commission, and all the other FSF-related agencies. Joselito Basilio. Dr. Basilio is the principal economist at the DBM, serving the department in its work on budget policy, strategy research, statistical and economic analysis and methods. Prior to joining the DBM, he served at the BSP as a principal researcher. Of course, he graduated development economics at the UP Diliman, applied economics at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and PhD in economics at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Okay, so let's begin the session with some comments from each of our resource persons on the programs related to their respective areas, maybe one or two top highlight programs that we can look forward to in the coming quarters, in the coming years, that will affect the financial literacy landscape.
Okay, so I'm earning my keep as a member of the PES. Many of you have already seen in the kit a lot of material from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas that help understand what's going on with financial literacy and aspects of the banking system. But this is not all. There's a lot more online in the BSP website, also videos, also teaching and learning materials that you can use in your classes. In addition, if you go to the website, there's what we call the Economic and Financial Learning Office. And the BSP Economic and Financial Learning Office will supply you with resource persons whenever you need it for events, for learning activities anywhere in the country. We will have our regional offices work with you wherever you are. Now, indeed, financial literacy 101 is a big problem for all of us. In fact, we should learn it in school. How to open a bank account, how to operate a bank account. What's the difference between a savings account, a current account, and a combo account? What's a time deposit? What's a special time deposit? And all of the investment products that you can think of. We don't learn this in school. We learn it in real life, and often we learn it when we get into trouble, when we already need to ask for help. Now, under the recent Financial Consumer Act, there is now a formalized consumer redress system. You can complain to the bank, and the bank's complaint address is listed on the BSP website, including the phone number and the email address. And you document your problem with the bank. If the bank is not responsive, then you can complain direct to BSP. And BSP, under the new law, has adjudication powers, which means that we don't need to go to the courts. BSP will act as the court. And if you have a problem, we will settle it between you as a consumer and the bank as the respondent. And so that is a key feature of the new Consumer Protection Act. The Consumer Protection Act also standardizes bank terms and conditions for providing loans, for credit cards, and for other financial services. That will enable us to be able to monitor and check on whether or not the banks comply with the law. So I'll stop there for a moment.
Okay, so very clear, the BSP has quasi-judicial powers to protect consumers, no? So you shouldn't just teach this, you should practice it as economists, no? Again, don't share your OTP to anyone. There are ways by which they can set you up, no? They can tell your household help they won a raffle and they need an OTP from the boss, and you give it away, so you lose your account, no? You lose your money, okay? Don't give away your credit card either. Even if they cut it in front of you, they can still use the secret code there, no? So again, if you practice it, it's better than teaching, no? You have to. Okay, so now let's listen to Dr. Basilio. Kindly share with us some of the initiatives that the Philippine government outside the BSP is trying to carry out to ensure financial literacy. Thank you. Mike, let me have a mic for Dr. Basilio.
Thank you.
By the way, as we wait for the microphone, we'll have a Q&A session. Slido, the code is again PES61, no? Hashtag PES61. So if you have questions, I'll give you a lot of time for questions. You can start asking them already. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Mr. June Neri. We have prepared some slides.
Okay. So the DBM has some slides.
We note that on the part of the government or in fiscal policy, the intervention on having a sustainable and healthy financial sector towards an inclusive society is that these are all in all levels of government, from the national to the regional and up to the local and barangay levels. And we have seen this in many aspects of our lives of the Philippine economy. If we go to the first few slides, next, please. Financial conditions and financial market. We note that throughout the history in the last 4 decades, fiscal conditions and financial market development are intertwined with one another. Next slide, please. How do we know that? From the framework that we have at the level of the national government, over the medium term, we have fiscal targets that are very much aligned with what we want the economy to grow, together with how per capita income should be targeted, and making sure that there is fiscal consolidation. Next slide. Towards that end, there are specific agenda items for the government, those for the near term and in the medium term. These are listed in the slides, and these are the things that we see every now and then in many of government slides, in the budget hearings in Congress. And many of these, 40% or 70% of the budget always goes to socio-economic sectors, which have both direct and indirect impact towards financial inclusion. Next slide, please. The next few slides show medium-term agenda. The next one, how do we intend to achieve this? The next one, next slide, please. The next one shows how the government would like to do a continued consolidation, which we have achieved over the years, at least since 2006. Fiscal reforms will continue even as the pandemic has given the government a big dent in its fiscal consolidation strategy. And we know that these are achievable. We also note that fiscal stability is a prerequisite for financial sector stability. Fiscal sector feeds on the financial sector, and the financial sector cannot have stability if the government is not in good fiscal conditions. Next slide, please. But the good news, of course, is this consolidation strategy is achievable. The next few slides shows us history. There are blue bar shaded parts which showed that financial crises have actually came along with fiscal crisis, at the very least since the Asian financial crisis in 2008. But after that, financial sector together with the fiscal sector, it came by in 2006, but financial sector development came in after the financial crisis, after the reforms. And in the succeeding crisis from 2008, we had the global crisis, and we have some sort of minor crisis in 2010, 11, and 12 during the US Fed's continued infusion of liquidity globally. And then there was the pandemic crisis. In these last two big crises, the biggest ones in the century and even five decades, the fiscal sector and the financial sector have become the source of strength, if not one of the big providers of solutions so that the economy will recover. And that is the main theme that the government would like to stand on. Is the next few slides. We show the other reforms that we know will have, these are also charts that show what I have said earlier, but we can go next, the next slide and the next slide. Budget and management reforms. The aim, of course, is for the government. As I said earlier, 70% of the budget always goes to socio-economic sector. So 11% goes to debt interest payments, and 15% goes to administration and defense. For the next year, budget should grow by 9.5%, reflecting the fact that we want to provide greater stimulus towards the many different sectors of the economy. The next slide shows us how the budget is evaluated, so that many of the documents or plans that have been adopted by the government towards financial inclusion are the ones that are given priority in the budget. The next one. We have a list of proposed budget for the different sectors. Topmost, of course, are the education sector, and then we have the health in the top three, and then infrastructure for long-term productivity and capacity increases. For some conclusion, in the next few slides, we show the different budget reforms that should promote greater efficiency, including right-sizing in government. The next one is on reforms in pension. The next one is on better budgeting. The next one shows us other reforms in budget utilization, where we try to have a mix of greater efficiency in the procurement process and budget process itself, as well as in how the government deals with the public, including on the digital front, like the launch of use of bank cards in the social programs of government. The next slide. Next, please. So this, the next one, please. If you can go to the second to the last slide. Foremost, of course, as had been discussed whole day here, for this one, I think the previous slide, please. Previous. So we have seen foremost of the reforms are, of course, digital transformation, the benefits of which are obvious to us. But all of the sustainability advocacies, digital transformation, and inclusion are embedded in the different projects and programs of the government. For example, in social protection programs, the use of bank cards are required among beneficiaries. Fuel subsidies and the use of national IDs are now proposed for all types of purpose. These are always, of course, free. Financial literacy in coordination with BSP, the DepEd has those kinds of program. This is almost costless because the DepEd has a regular budget on its in the curricula. Disaster risk-based management, budget management, of course, are being promoted for reasons of greater efficiency, but for the greater purpose of making sure that communities that are most vulnerable to disasters are being made resilient against disasters. In infrastructure, there are many more. So I think I will conclude now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So again, Dr. Bruce emphasized that there are so many resources in their website that you can access to gain more knowledge on financial literacy. So let's try to maximize that. And with the help, of course, of the DBM, for many of the other agencies of government, there are also a lot of initiatives that we can gain access to and promote. So now let's have Brother Clifford Surita of the Ministry of Cooperatives and Social Enterprises.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I also would like to thank the Philippine Economic Society for this invitation. I prepared a brief statement na lang. It has to be short para we can catch on time. Sabi nga nila, when I tell my students, we should give speeches like a mini skirt. Short enough to arouse the emotion, but long enough to cover the essential parts.
Yeah.
Well, in the past, our Philippine Development Plan from the Philippine National Economic Development Authority hardly mentions cooperatives vis-a-vis the country's socio-economic development. In fact, from 2012 to 2016, we were just a mere footnote, while in 2017, we were mentioned at least 5 times. But in the recent 450-page Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2027, cooperatives now has been acknowledged 15 times, highlighting its role in Philippine development. So briefly, we would like to say that the cooperative sector now in 2022 is 20,105 strong cooperatives. We have 3.9 large cooperatives, 11.19 medium cooperatives, 19.1 small cooperatives, and 65.1 micro cooperatives. If you translate this, it will be translated economically to 9.7 million members, 907 employees, 549.08 billion in assets, 406.63 billion volume in business, 23.87 billion net surplus, 169.86 billion in paid-up capital, and 197.35 billion in savings. We thrive as a group because by definition, according to Republic Act 9520, cooperatives are an autonomous and duly registered association of persons with a common bond of interest who have voluntarily joined together to achieve our social, economic, cultural needs and aspirations by making equitable contributions to the capital required, patronizing our products and services, and accepting a fair share of the risk and benefits of these undertakings in accordance with universally accepted cooperative principles. Dear friends in the PES, in other words, our business model is driven by values, not just profit, in which cooperatives share internationally agreed principles and act together to build a better world through cooperation, putting fairness, equality, and social justice at the heart of this enterprise. Cooperatives would, around the world, allow people to work together to create sustainable enterprises and generate long-term jobs and prosperity. The only hope of cooperatives is that more of our youth will have the chance to grow up in these cooperative spaces, and that more adults get the respect and empowerment that comes from working in cooperatives and buying from cooperatives, and that over time, diverse forms of democratic ownership displace greedy capitalism as the foundation of our Philippine economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, brother. I'm forced to clap. Yeah, so just as an additional information on cooperatives, the stock market this year is down from the beginning of 2023. Bonds are also down. As you know, the yields have gone up from 1%, 1.5% back in 2020, and bond yields in the US now are closer to 4.5%. And of course, that is an inverse relationship between the yield and the price. You're actually losing from those two types of investments. But the top cooperatives in the Philippines are providing you with a return of 5, 8, some of them even double-digit returns. Now, of course, those that are performing well. No? So we can't really say that it's a superior source of savings or form of savings in the cooperatives. No? At any rate, I don't see any questions just yet in Slido. If there are none, then I'll be the one to proceed with the questions. Yes, Doc Bruce, yes.
One thing.
Microphone, please.
Let me just add some information on another initiative that the Bangko Sentral is leading in cooperation with the CHED, the Commission on Higher Education. It's a personal finance 101 curriculum that will be built into freshman and sophomore curricula across the country. And the Personal Finance 101 covers a number of topics that we should have learned in school, but we are now navigating on our own after we finish school. Like, how do you get a housing loan? And how do you manage your housing loan? How do you handle your retirement account? How do you handle a credit card? How do you ensure that your SSS and GSIS account is well managed? Things like those will be covered in the Personal Finance 101 account, or 101 program that we're working out with CHED. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tolentino. So, again, as an additional information, we had Senior Assistant Governor Edna Villa present in the earlier sessions. I think that should be recorded and be given out to everyone. Very informative sessions about how PesoNet, InstaPay, and QRPH have succeeded. No? InstaPay has already overtaken ATM transactions in terms of volume. PesoNet also overtaking checking account volumes. No? QRPH, again, I think I will live to see the day when even beggars and mendicants in the streets are using QRs to collect donations, or when you're in the church, you can give your donation using your e-wallet. No? Okay. A new development is, as Dr. Edna shared this morning, is the request to pay facility where you can receive using your app a request from a secondary party of a fee that you have committed to carry out. No? So very soon it will be made available to everyone. No? So these kinds of initiatives, we have to be mindful so that our students, when they ask us, we can answer their questions. No? So also I'd like to take this opportunity to again thank the late Governor Nesting Espinilla, who made PesoNet and InstaPay regulation possible for us to all enjoy our digital payments infrastructure. Okay, so let's begin with my questions, since there are no questions on slide. Oh, okay, so let's have our President, Dr. Randy, ask the first question.
Just to thank all the presenters for the very useful presentations. And well, this is not exactly a question, but maybe just asking you for a commentary, Dr. Tolentino, Doc Bruce. No? In this morning's discussion on the on economics education, there was a lot of discussion that interest in economics in college actually comes from the subjects that students take during high school. No? And as you know, no, economics now is required in all grade 9 subjects. And my problem only with my son also, well, a few years ago finished that grade 9 economics course, is that I think they're teaching the same topics as we teach in first year college economics, marginal analysis, no, and so on. So a lot of parents have been discussing that maybe the grade 9 economics course could be an economic and financial literacy course. And I don't know if June wants to be by my comment. When we were in high school, personally I was interested in economics because of a course that I took in high school called Consumer Mathematics, which is something like a economic and financial literacy course. So maybe the BSP or maybe the PS, and then maybe we can bring in BSP and other organizations here. Maybe transform that grade 9 course, or if it cannot be transformed, maybe include more economic and financial literacy topics. And that's where maybe you can include some of the materials at the BSP, and maybe the DBM and also the cooperatives. Topics can be discussed at that level, and hopefully make economics more interesting so that we have more students at the college level, economics at the college level.
Two things. Every year, the BSP works with DepEd on a long series of activities that help enable teachers to get more familiar with economics concepts. And in fact, it's going on right now at PICC. and it's also accessible online. The thing is that in most of our schools all across the country, especially public schools, teachers are among the most indebted. And in fact, working with them opens up the opportunity to help them manage their debts and also help them understand the economics behind their situation. The thing is that it really needs to be a continuous effort. And so we're hoping that the Personal Finance 101 course that we're starting with CHED can also be translated into a more basic personal finance course for high school levels. Because after all, many of our high school kids already go to work and they need to be able to handle their finances. If I may just quickly add one more thing.
Go ahead, Dr. Bruce.
That picks up from the discussion in the previous session. Lito Villanueva reminded us that while all of these advances are going ahead, and the banks are taking advantage of it as much as they can to carry out business with as wide a market as possible, there's still a very, very wide digital divide of people who just cannot access the internet, of people who have access but it's very weak. And when you try to do an financial transaction on your phone in the provinces, the signal drops off and you're charged twice, or your transaction doesn't go through, and you have a problem because the bank now holds your money. So the crucial thing here is, and I worry that our colleague from the Competition Commission did not mention it, the crucial issue really is competition in telecommunications. And they should be working very hard to allow more players to enter the country to serve digital, to provide digital services. Now, as you know, it requires a franchise provided by Congress to get into the telecoms business. And they should be working on that very hard to ensure that that franchise disappears so that it will be free entry as well as free exit in the telecoms game in the Philippines. Right now, we're still dominated by Smart and Globe. And the other guy is not being able to catch up. And so Smart and Globe are not afraid of competition. That's why it's very expensive here to get internet service. That's why the development of digital services is really constrained by telecoms access all across the country. And that should be a key advocacy that we should be doing to solve it. Now, we had to go around the franchise issue on satellites. We, BSP, worked with the Financial Inclusion Steering Committee to get President Duterte to pass an executive order that defines satellite services as an added service. So it does not require a congressional franchise. And that enabled Elon Musk and the other satellite providers to come in. You can now get a Starlink set and a European Space Agency set and a Japanese satellite link now without having to worry about the congressional franchise. But that was a work around NTC. I worry that, sure, the Public Service Act has been passed, but it is the NTC that's writing the IRR. And the NTC is one of the best examples in our country of regulatory capture. And we should really worry about that.
Okay, so it's BSP who's doing the heavy lifting again. We need the telco sector to be moving forward.
Can I comment
it's good that we have
on the question?
Again, Starlink as an alternative for those of you who are unaware. Starlink is satellite, so you don't need to have fiber laid out in your province, and you can gain access to And I've seen, actual practitioners of users of Starlink. Go ahead,
It's an education question.
Brother.
So one of the problems really when we teach economics is that what is real is sometimes not bridged with what is ideal. So we have to bridge the two. And the problem is sometimes economic principles are too tied up that we forget to give the children what we call financial literacy. And I believe that when we try to bridge the two, because in the cooperative sector, what we want to do is that we really want to bridge the two. We really want to give the cooperative members a sense of what it is really to be part of an empowering act of being part of the cooperative. That is the reason why our formation program is built towards financial literacy. And so what we do is that we try to build that. But what we discovered is financial literacy is also impossible if you don't build the culture first. So we first have to build the culture within the group so that from that culture, the sense of empowerment comes in so that when we filled in the gap with that financial literacy, the members are already empowered themselves because of the principles, the values, and the identity inculcated to them so that when the education comes in, then they are more empowered to do so. That is the key so that the links are not, the link between the ideal and the real are bridged.
Thank you for that input. Again, I'll get your question in a bit, Sir Alex. Let me read off the question that was asked earlier, and since you have the mic already, brother, that there's going to be a revision in the cooperative code. What is your comment on the revisions, proposed revisions?
Well, right now, honestly, there is a working group among UMMC, the Union of Metropolitan Cooperatives, and also the higher apex groups are now trying to work together to consolidate all of the suggestions for the revision of the cooperative code because there are many provisions in the code that has to be really streamlined so that it becomes more efficient for the grassroots cooperatives to be able to function well.
Okay, thank you. So that's been answered. Just to add to brother's comments about culture and mindset, if it's too good to be true, don't put your money in that. Okay. Okay. So there's a question here for I'll ask a question to Dr. Basilio first. On the local government level, what is being carried out to promote financial literacy and maybe even practice financial literacy concepts or principles among the local governments because they are now receiving a bigger share of the budget every year?
That's right. The last 3 slides actually I have pertains to LGU, fiscal or financial concerns or issues. So with Mandana's ruling, their budget last year increased by around 37%, big time. But this year it decreased by 14% because the budget, their allocation is based on the 2020 pandemic year where tax collection was lower. But we expect it to grow by around 14, 15, or even up to 17% next year. So now they have a bigger budget. The problem, of course, is historically, I had slides, you can download it online. The utilization of their budget is around 69% only tops. So they have plenty of surplus on average for the big cities. And when I attended the Councilors League meeting, the goal for each one of them is to do balanced budgeting. But that can pose a problem because if there are investment opportunities, they are actually empowered by the local government code to do some sort of additional financing exploration, like borrowing, debt, or additional means so that they improve in their own tax collections. So we can see that there's need for greater capacity building. And that is what the national government is doing. DBM together with the DILG have these regular capacity building programs. Plus at the same time, actual assistance in utilization of the budget. But the big ones that we want to do is reforms in the procurement because in their capacity building programs, we have seen that they are not apt and well in the procurement process, especially for the sort of unusual social protection programs for the LGUs. If it's very hard to implement or to buy, they avoid doing such kinds of programs. So they have become less innovative because of the long procurement process and other problems. So the Congress is very much open to that, those kinds of reforms. There are many others, but we will continue the discussions even after the
All right.
conference.
Our time is up, but I'll give Dr. Alex a chance to, Sir Alex a chance to ask his question. He will ask a question, not comment. No, he will. Because we have no more time. Otherwise, I would have allowed him to comment.
I know you are 20 minutes late, behind schedule. In financial literacy, based on my experience, we're talking really of three very different things. One is money and banking, and teaching it in high school does not really help. The subject of banking and finance, second, is very different also from personal finance. I was teaching the overview of the banking industry in behalf of the Bankers Association of the Philippines to teachers who are members of PAXB, Philippine Association of Collegiate Schools of Business. They have a program with the BAP, and for about 5 years, I was doing the first half-day session with them, which is the overview of the banking system. And their feedback is, ibang-iba talaga yung money and banking course sa how a banking industry or how a specific bank operates and how it makes money. Then yung personal finance is, again, a very completely different matter altogether. My wife and I have been conducting workshops for
Yes.
couples for Christ, young couples
Yes,
on
go,
that.
go ahead
But-
with the question, sir.
So the question, this is not a question, this is a
It's
comment.
not a question. Okay.
These are three
I'll give you
separate
30
topics.
seconds more, sir.
Yes.
Because the timer is already telling me.
Basically, what we're saying lang is, for going forward, the initiative mentioned by President Randy with PES, with the PAXB, I think, is good one. But separate then MB Bruce about the banking and finance portion, no? And therefore, the BAP made that project. And I was tasked to write the overview of the banking industry for those who want to learn more about that. So I think we could continue to do that cooperation, Dr. Bruce, with the BAP. Thank you.
Okay, so personal finance courses, very different from money and banking. All right. So with that, I'd like to end today's session on the EFL. We have fulfilled our commitment to the law to do an EFL session this afternoon. I think it was a very fruitful session. Thank you very much to our resource speakers, and good afternoon to everyone.